The transport ship shook as it entered the docking bay of station, pressed her face against the small window, and looked at the massive structure floating in space. The Galactic Military Academy, the place where warriors from 12 different star systems came to train together. The place where she would prove that humans were more than what the galaxy believed them to be. She was small, 5 feet and 4 inches. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were dark and calm like still water. She wore the standard uniform of a new cadet, and she carried nothing but a small bag with her personal items. To anyone watching, she looked like nothing special, just another soft-skinned human from a backwater planet called Earth. That was exactly what she wanted them to think. The doors opened and stepped onto the station. The air smelled different here, cold and recycled. Around her, cadets from other species walked with confidence. She saw her first up close. He was 8 feet tall with green scales covering his entire body like armor. His yellow eyes looked down at her for a moment, then looked away as if she was not worth his attention. A group of warriors clicked their mandibles as she passed. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells and 4 arms each. One of them made a sound that her translator chip turned into words. Another human. How many of them will they send before they understand they do not belong here? Did not respond. She simply walked forward, her eyes taking in everything around her. The way they moved, the blind spots in their vision, the gaps in their armor where the shell plates met. She stored all of this information in her mind like a hunter studying new prey. The orientation hall was massive. Thousands of cadets stood in neat rows, organized by species. Found the human section. There were only 12 of them in total. Humanity had only achieved interstellar travel 15 years ago. They were the species in the galactic community, and everyone treated them like children who had wandered into a room full of adults. A young man stood next to her, his name tag read. He was taller than her but had the same calm expression. He nodded at her once and said nothing. She appreciated that. Words were not always necessary. A loud horn sounded and the room fell silent. Instructor walked onto the raised platform at the front. He was but larger than any she had seen. His scales were darker, almost black, and scars covered his arms and chest. He had seen real combat. He had killed. Could see it in the way he moved. "Welcome to the academy," said. His voice was deep and it echoed through the hall. "You are here because your planets believe you are warriors, but belief means nothing. Only results matter. Only survival matters." He paused and looked across the room. His eyes stopped on the human section for a moment, saw the doubt in his gaze, the dismissal. She had seen that look many times before. "In 7 days," continued, "you will face your first test, a live combat simulation. 100 cadets will enter the arena. The rules are simple. There are no rules. First blood counts as a kill. Elimination means you are removed from the program. Only the strong will remain." Whispers spread through the hall. Some cadets looked excited. Others looked nervous. The warriors clicked their mandibles in what sounded like laughter. They were looking at the humans again. One of them spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Perhaps the humans should train as medics instead. They would be more useful cleaning wounds than trying to fight. Some of the other species laughed. The sound was ugly and mocking. Felt tense beside her, but she placed a hand on his arm, a small gesture. "Stay calm. Do not react. Let them underestimate us." After the orientation, the cadets were sent to their quarters. His room was small but clean. She sat on her bed and closed her eyes. In her mind, she replayed everything she had observed. They were strong and had natural armor, but they were slow to turn. They were fast and had multiple limbs, but they relied too much on group tactics. The she had seen were massive, some over 12 feet tall, but their size made them clumsy in tight spaces. Every species had weaknesses. Every species could be defeated. That was what humans understood better than anyone. Back on Earth, humans had no claws, no fangs, no armor. They were soft and weak compared to the predators they shared their world with, but they survived. They more than survived. They became the dominant species on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They did it by watching, by learning, by adapting, and when the time came, by striking without mercy. Opened her eyes. 7 days until the simulation. 7 days to watch her future opponents. 7 days to learn their patterns, their habits, their blind spots. The other species thought humans were prey. They looked at soft skin and small bodies and saw weakness. They did not understand what they were really looking at. They were looking at the most dangerous kind of predator, the kind that did not look dangerous at all, the kind that smiled and seemed harmless until it was far too late. Lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere on this station, warriors were laughing about humans. Instructors were doubting human abilities. 100 cadets were preparing to fight in an arena, and none of them considered the small human girl a threat. She smiled, a small, quiet smile. Good. The arena was a jungle, real trees, real water, real danger. A kilometer wide, designed to test cadets in the most brutal way possible. Stood on the drop platform with 99 other cadets, waiting for the signal that would begin the simulation. Around her, the other species prepared in their own ways. They checked their thermal vision by scanning the crowd. They released pheromones to communicate silently with their swarm mates. The massive simply cracked their knuckles and grinned with mouths full of sharp teeth. Did nothing. She stood still and breathed slowly. Her heart rate was calm. Her mind was clear. For the past 7 days she had watched everyone. She knew how they moved, how they communicated, how they preferred to attack. She had memorized weak points and blind spots. She had mapped out every advantage and disadvantage. Now it was time to use that knowledge. A loud horn sounded. The platforms dropped. 100 cadets fell into the jungle below. Chaos erupted immediately. Cadets scattered in all directions. Some ran to find weapons hidden throughout the arena. Others immediately began hunting the weakest targets they could find. The sounds of combat filled the air within seconds as alliances formed and broke just as quickly. Did not run. She did not hide. She did something none of them expected. She climbed. Her small hands found holds in the tree bark that larger species could not use. Her light body moved up the trunk quickly and silently. Within 30 seconds, she was in the canopy, hidden among thick leaves and twisted branches. From up here, she could see everything below. The jungle floor was madness. Cadets fought and fled and screamed, but was not watching all of them. She was watching one specific target. Cadet, the who had mocked humans during orientation. The one who said they should train as medics. He was moving through the brush with 2 of his swarm mates, clicking orders through pheromones. They thought they were the hunters. They thought their hard shells made them safe. Began moving through the trees. She was silent. Her feet found branches that would not break. Her hands gripped vines that would not shake. She was not running through the canopy. She was flowing through it like water through a stream. 1 minute passed, stopped below her position. He was scanning the area looking for easy targets. His compound eyes could see in multiple directions, but they could not see up, not directly above. That was a blind spot in the design. Had spent 3 days confirming this. She waited, patient still, like a spider watching a fly. Turned his back to her tree. He said something to his swarm mates and they spread out to search the nearby bushes. He was alone now, just for a moment, but a moment was all she needed. 1 minute and 45 seconds into the simulation, dropped. She fell silently, 15 feet straight down. Her feet hits back and drove him to the ground. Before he could scream, before he could even understand what was happening, her hand found the gap between his thorax plates. The small space where the shell segments met, the weakness in his natural armor. Her blade slid in, quick, clean, precise. Went still. The arena's announcement system crackled to life. A mechanical voice echoed through the jungle. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet, human. 2 minutes, first kill. For a moment, the jungle went quiet. The fighting stopped. Every cadet froze and listened to that announcement. A human had scored first blood. A human had killed a warrior in less than 2 minutes. Then the chaos returned, but it was different now. There was fear mixed in with the aggression. Whispers spread through the arena. Some cadets dismissed it as luck. Others started looking up at the trees. Did not stay to celebrate. She was already moving again, climbing higher, finding new positions. The hunt had just begun. She found her second target at minute 12. Ahu was using his thermal vision to track prey through the brush. He was smart. He was experienced. But he had one weakness. He trusted his thermal vision too much. If something did not show up as warm, he did not consider it a threat. Had been lying in a cold stream for 2 minutes. Her body temperature had dropped. When she emerged from the water, this thermal vision registered her as just another cold spot in the environment. He did not see her as a living thing. He did not see her as danger. He saw nothing until her blade found his neck. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet, human. 3 kills by minute 23. 4 kills by minute 31. Each one was different. Each one used a specific weakness that had identified during her week of observation. She was not fighting with strength or speed. She was fighting with knowledge, with patience, with the understanding that every creature, no matter how powerful, had a way to be defeated. The other cadets were starting to panic now. The announcements kept coming, the same name over and over. Human, the prey species, was hunting them. By minute 40, had killed 5 cadets, and the real monster was coming for her. Cadet, a female, 12 feet tall, muscles like steel cables. She was considered the strongest cadet in the program, and she had decided that the human needed to die. Heard her coming from 100 meters away. They were not subtle. They did not need to be. Their strength solved every problem they faced. But strength was not everything. Knew exactly where to lead her. She ran, not because she was afraid, but because she had a destination in mind. A cliff faced near the eastern edge of the arena, unstable ground, a sinkhole hidden beneath thin rock. Chased her with thundering steps. The ground shook with each impact. She was gaining. Her long legs ate up the distance. Reached the cliff and stopped. She turned to face the giant. Laughed. The sound was deep and terrifying. Nowhere to run, little mammal. Looked up at her and tilted her head. Who said I was running? Charged, the ground cracked beneath her massive weight, and then it broke. The fell screaming into the sinkhole. The rocks collapsed around her. She was not dead, but she was trapped, eliminated. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet, human. Minute 44, 5 kills. Above the arena, on the observation deck, Instructor watched with wide eyes. His claws gripped the railing so hard that the metal bent. Impossible, he whispered. She is not fighting like prey. Another instructor, a female, shook her head slowly. No, she is not defending, she is hunting. A third voice spoke from the shadows, older, quieter, and she has not stopped smiling, not once. The simulation continued. But everything had changed. The humans were no longer the weakest species in the arena. They were the most dangerous. The jungle had become a nightmare, not because of the predatory animals hidden in the brush, not because of the traps placed throughout the arena. The nightmare had a name: human. By minute 45, only 32 cadets remained from the original 100, had personally eliminated 5 of them. The others had fallen to each other in the chaos, but everyone knew who the real threat was. The announcements kept coming. The same name, over and over. On the observation deck above the arena, Instructor stood frozen. His yellow eyes tracked the small human figure moving through the canopy like a ghost. Around him, other instructors whispered in languages from distant worlds. Their translators picked up fragments. She has killed 3 warriors. No one kills warriors. The she eliminated was a thermal hunter. How did she hide from thermal vision? The weighed 800 kilograms. She used the ground itself as a weapon. Said nothing. He was remembering the orientation, the small human girl standing quietly in the crowd. He had dismissed her without a second thought. Everyone had. She was soft. She was small. She was human. He had made a terrible mistake. In the arena below, crouched on a thick branch and watched two warriors moving through the brush. They were working together now. After losing 3 of their kind to the human, the remaining had formed a hunting party. They communicated through pheromones, a chemical language that other species could not intercept. But they forgot one thing. Chemical signals leave trails in the air, and humans had noses that could detect more scents than almost any species in the galaxy. Smelled their communication before she saw them. Fear, anger, coordination. They were planning something. They were hunting her as a pair. Good, she had been waiting for this. She dropped from the trees and landed in their path. Both froze for a split second. That was enough. Threw a handful of mud into the first one's compound eyes, blinding him instantly. While he screamed and clawed at his face, she was already moving toward the second. The second swung all 4 of his arms at once. It was a devastating attack that would have crushed any opponent, but was not standing where his arms landed. She had ducked low, sliding beneath his reach. Her blade found the soft tissue at the back of his knee. He fell, she climbed. Her second strike found the gap in his neck plates. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human. The blind was still screaming, ended it quickly. There was no cruelty in her strikes, no anger, just efficiency. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human. 6 and 7, minute 51. The remaining cadets heard the announcements and panic spread like fire. Some tried to hide. Others formed larger groups, thinking that numbers would protect them. A few brave souls decided to hunt the human themselves. They were wrong. A named thought his natural armor would save him. He found standing in a clearing, seemingly vulnerable. He charged with claws extended, confident in his superior strength and durability. Did not run, she did not fight, she simply stood still as he approached. At the last second her blade caught the gap in his armpit where the scales did not cover. It was a small wound, not fatal, but the stumbled, surprised by the pain, and that stumble carried him forward into the spike trap that had positioned behind her. She had not been standing in that clearing by accident. She had been leading him there. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human. 8 minute 53. On the observation deck, an instructor made a sound of distress. She is not reacting to them. She is predicting them. She knows exactly what they will do before they do it. Another instructor, an older within his fur, nodded slowly. Pattern recognition. I have read about this. Humans evolved as persistence predators. They would track prey for days, learning their patterns, waiting for the perfect moment. We thought it was primitive, simple. And now asked. This voice was quiet. Now I understand why there is classified as a death planet. Everything there is trying to kill everything else. The humans won. They won against everything. In the arena continued to move. She was not tired. Humans had evolved for endurance, not speed. She could maintain this pace for hours while other species exhausted themselves. At minute 55 she heard a new sound, footsteps, light ones, familiar ones. She turned and saw emerging from the brush the other human cadet. He was injured. A deep cut on his arm was bleeding slowly, but he was alive. They are forming groups now, said. His breathing was heavy but controlled. They think numbers will help. They will not, said simply. I know, looked at her with something between respect and unease. They have a name for you now, the survivors. They are calling you the Death Huntress. Considered this for a moment. She had not asked for a name. She did not need one, but she understood why they needed to call her something. Giving fear a name made it feel more manageable. "Can you still fight?" she asked. Nodded. "I can move. I can watch your back." "Good, stay close. Move when I move, stop when I stop." She led him to a sheltered position beneath a fallen tree. From here, she could see 3 different approaches while remaining hidden. She treated his wound with supplies from a dead cadet's pack. Her hands were steady, gentle. "Why did you help me?" asked. "You could eliminate me, add another kill to your count." Looked at him. Her dark eyes were calm but not cold. "We are 12 humans on a station of thousands. If we fight each other, we lose, all of us. Forever." She finished wrapping his wound and stood up. The announcements were coming less frequently now. Fewer cadets remained. The simulation would end soon. "Rest here," she said. "I will finish this." Watched her disappear into the jungle. Behind him, he heard another announcement echo through the arena. "Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human." 9. The Death Huntress was still hunting. The 1-hour mark was approaching. The simulation had become something no one expected. It was supposed to test the cadets. It was supposed to show who was strong and who was weak. Instead, it had revealed a truth that the galaxy had missed for 15 years. Humans were not prey. Moved through the jungle like a shadow. Her breathing was steady. Her heart rate was slightly elevated but completely controlled. She had been fighting for nearly an hour and she was not tired. This was what humans were built for, not short bursts of speed, not raw power, endurance, the ability to keep going when every other species needed to rest. The remaining cadets were exhausted. They were panting, their thermal vision flickering as their body temperatures rose from exertion. They were slowing, their 4 arms moving with less precision. The few left were covered in sweat, their massive bodies burning energy faster than they could recover. But the human was still fresh, still hunting. On the observation deck, instructor watched the tracking display. 23 cadets remained. The small dot marked as human moved steadily across the map while other dots clustered together in defensive groups. "She has 9 kills, an instructor said. His voice was hollow. "No cadet in the history of this program has ever reached 9 kills in a single simulation." "She is not finished," replied quietly. He was right. In the arena, a group of 5 cadets had formed an alliance. 2, 2, 1. They had watched the Death Huntress eliminate their classmates one by one. They had heard the announcements. They knew that alone they would die. Together, they thought they had a chance. They were wrong. Found them in a clearing near the center of the arena. They had formed a circle with their backs to each other, a defensive formation. No blind spots, no easy approaches, smart. But they had made one mistake. They were standing still. Did not attack immediately. She circled them once, twice, 3 times. She let them hear her footsteps. She let them see glimpses of movement in the trees. She let their fear grow. An hour of hunting had taught these cadets one lesson. If they could see her, they might survive. If they could not see her, they were already dead. The waiting broke them. One of them could not take it anymore. He ran, panic his training. He crashed through the brush toward what he thought was safety. Was waiting. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human. 10. The remaining 4 pulled their circle, but now there was a gap. Now there was an opening. Attacked from above. She dropped onto this back and used his own height against him. Before the others could react, she had already opened the wound and leaped away into the brush. The fell to his knees, eliminated. The others scattered. The formation was broken. They were alone again. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human. 11. The 2 ran in different directions. One of them made it almost 50 meters before he realized that the human was matching his pace, running beside him in the trees, watching him. He stopped, turned, raised his claws. "Fight me fairly," he roared. Dropped to the ground in front of him. She tilted her head. "Why?" They did not have an answer. In his world, honor demanded fair combat, equal terms, a test of strength against strength. But humans did not come from his world. Humans came from Earth, and on Earth, fair fights got you killed. Moved before he could process what was happening. She was under his guard, past his claws, her blade finding the gap at the base of his skull. Cadet eliminated, credited to Cadet human. 12. The simulation timer showed 59 minutes. 1 minute remained. On the observation deck, complete silence. Every instructor stared at the display with wide eyes. 12 kills. A human cadet had achieved 12 kills, more than any cadet from any species in the 150-year history of the Galactic Military Academy. Impossible, someone whispered. Clearly not, replied. The horn sounded. The simulation was over. The arena's artificial sun brightened to signal the end of combat. Weapons were deactivated remotely. The surviving cadets stood frozen wherever they were, waiting for the doors to open. Walked back to the fallen tree where she had left. He was still there, his wound wrapped, his breathing steady. He looked up as she approached. How many? He asked. 12. Was quiet for a moment, then he laughed. It was a tired sound but genuine. They are never going to underestimate humans again. No, agreed, they are not. The arena doors opened with a loud hiss. Cadets began filing out, moving in small groups supporting the wounded. No one spoke above a whisper. They all walked with their heads down, avoiding eye contact. Except when passed. When she walked toward the exit, cadets from every species moved aside. They pressed against the walls. They gave her space. Some of them could not even look at her. Others stared with something between horror and awe. The Death Huntress. A cadet who had survived by hiding in a cave for most of the simulation watched her pass. His claws were shaking. She is just a human, he whispered to himself. Just a small, soft human. But the words felt hollow, empty. He had seen what that small, soft human could do. He would never forget it. None of them would. Stepped through the arena doors and into the bright lights of the station corridor. Behind her, 17 surviving cadets followed at a careful distance. Ahead of her, instructors waited with data pads and shocked expressions. 12 kills, 0 injuries. Average heart rate throughout the simulation, elevated but controlled. She had never been afraid. She had never panicked. She had simply done what humans had always done. She had hunted. The assembly hall was silent. 2,000 cadets stood in perfect rows, their eyes fixed on the raised platform at the front. No one moved. No one spoke. The air felt heavy with something that had not existed in this hall before. Fear. Instructor walked to the center of the platform. His black scales gleamed under the bright lights. His yellow eyes swept across the crowd before settling on the small group of humans standing near the back. Yesterday, he began, his deep voice echoing through the hall, 100 cadets entered the combat simulation. 18 survived to completion. 12 of those eliminations were credited to a single cadet. He paused, the silence stretched. A human cadet. Whispers broke out across the hall. Cadets from every species turned to look at the human section. Stood among her 11 fellow humans, her face calm, her posture relaxed. She did not react to the attention. She had expected it. Raised a clawed hand and the whispers died. For 15 years, the Galactic Council has classified humans as a prey species. This classification was based on several factors. Humans have no natural armor, no claws, no fangs, no venom. Their bodies are soft. Their muscles are weak compared to most spacefaring species. They die easily from wounds that other species would survive. He pulled up a holographic display. Data scrolled across the screen. Images of human anatomy appeared, highlighting all the weaknesses he had just described. Based on this data, the Council concluded that humans posed no significant threat. They were allowed to join the academy primarily as a diplomatic gesture, a way to make them feel included without actually expecting them to succeed. His yellow eyes found in the crowd. We were wrong. The holographic display changed. New images appeared, images that made cadets throughout the hall gasp and shift uncomfortably. Earth, not the blue and green paradise that most species imagine when they thought of living worlds. The real Earth, the death world. Human, continued, classified by Galactic Survey as a Category 7 death world, one of only 12 in known space. Extreme temperature variations, tectonic instability, predators on every continent, venomous creatures, poisonous plants, diseases that mutate faster than medicine can adapt, and the radiation from their sun causes cellular damage with every moment of exposure. He let that information sink in. Every species on Earth is trying to kill every other species. Every day is a fight for survival, and yet humans became the dominant life form on this world. Not through strength, not through natural weapons, through something else entirely. The display changed again. This time it showed a human hunting party from Earth's ancient past. Small figures with simple tools, tracking a massive animal across an open plain. Persistence hunting, said. Humans evolved as endurance predators. They could not outrun their prey. They could not overpower it. So they learned to track it, for hours, for days. They would follow an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion, until its heart gave out from the stress of being chased by something that never stopped coming. He turned to face the crowd directly. We thought humans were prey because they are soft. We forgot to ask why soft creatures survived on a death world. The answer is simple. They did not survive by being prey. They survived by being the most patient, most adaptable, most persistent predators their planet had ever seen. In the crowd, cadets were looking at the humans with new eyes. The soft skin, the calm expressions, the way they stood without tension, without aggression. It all looked different now. Not weak, not harmless. Waiting. Continued. Cadet demonstrated exactly what humans are capable of when they are underestimated. She studied her opponents for an entire week. She learned their weaknesses. She planned her attacks. And when the simulation began, she did not fight like prey fighting for survival. His voice dropped lower. She fought like a predator that had already won. The combat was simply the final step of a hunt that began the moment she arrived at this station. He pulled up performance data, 12 kills, 0 injuries. Average heart rate throughout the simulation, elevated but controlled, not panicking, not desperate, calm, calculated. This is what humans are, said. They are not the weakest species in the galaxy. They are apex predators wearing the disguise of the harmless. They let you underestimate them. They let you think you are safe. And then, when you have made enough mistakes, they end you. The assembly ended shortly after. Cadets filed out in silence, each one processing what they had learned. The universe looked different now, more dangerous, because somewhere in the galaxy there was a species that looked like prey and hunted like death itself. Hours later, walked through the station corridors toward her quarters. Cadets from other species moved aside as she passed. Some nodded with respect. Others could not meet her eyes. A voice called out behind her, "Human." She turned, stood there. The warrior she had killed first in the simulation. His wounds had healed, but something in his posture had changed. The arrogance was gone. The mockery was gone. "I underestimated you," he said. His mandibles clicked slowly. "I was foolish." Studied him for a moment, then she gave a small bow. "Most do, once." She turned and continued walking, fell into step beside her. He had been waiting around the corner, watching the exchange. "Death Huntress," he said, testing the name. "It is a dramatic title. I did not choose it. Will you keep it?" Considered the question. Names had power. They carried meaning. The galaxy had given her this name because they were afraid. They needed to call her something to make sense of what they had seen. "It does not matter what they call me," she said finally. "What matters is that they remember." They walked in silence for a while. Behind them, the station continued its endless rotation. Thousands of cadets from 12-star systems went about their training, but everything had changed. 15 years ago, humanity had reached the stars. They had been welcomed with polite smiles and hidden contempt. They had been classified as prey. They had been underestimated at every turn. That was over now. Reached her quarters and stopped at the door. She looked back at. The next simulation is in 3 months. More cadets will arrive. They will hear stories about the Death Huntress. They will think those stories are exaggerated. And then, lips curved into a small smile. And then they will learn that the stories were not exaggerated enough. She entered her room and the door closed behind her. In the corridor, stood alone for a moment, thinking about everything that had happened. The fear in the other cadets' eyes. The respect in instructor's voice. The way the galaxy had shifted on its axis because one small human girl had decided to stop pretending to be prey. He smiled to himself and walked away. Somewhere on station, in 100 different quarters, cadets from a dozen species were lying awake in the dark. They were remembering the jungle, the announcements, the shadow that had moved through the trees like death itself. They were remembering the first lesson humanity had taught them. Never underestimate the soft ones, never assume the small ones are weak, and never, ever forget what happens when you mistake a predator for prey. The Death Huntress was resting now, but she would hunt again. She always would.